Semiconductors with market correlations that tell a bullish story, and that mostly is in line with the expected bottom that we had in the market in this timing, looking for the market to make a low at the end of October or the beginning of November. So we're right there right now, and we're going to look at these very key stocks, because if they are setting up in a way that is more bullish, which I'm going to show you, then of course that is a good thing for the market. Of course, with the S&P 500 surging almost 200 points just in a matter of days, it's not the time to chase these stocks. However, what we're going to look for is an opportunity to enter on the long side. Let's first look at the SMH. I'm going to do a little lesson here on cycle analysis. This is really important, especially since we're showing this week the beginning of our special on the cycle analysis workshop, which I want you to make sure that you do watch. So the first thing we're going to look at is, what is a cycle? Well, a cycle is a repeating process that goes from a starting point to, which is the point of origination, back to that point. In other words, there's a timing in here that ends up to be the same thing in this repeating pattern. So it's a repeating pattern that you see. Every single stock has got its own cycle lengths. In this case, we're looking at the average cycle length of 27 bars, or when we're looking at it on a weekly chart, it's 27 weeks. And you can see how well that comes out, looking at these cycles going back to the low that we had in 2020, and you can see how these lay out with the lows, these dotted lines right over there. In actuality, this one a little bit short, as you can see. They're not going to come out exactly on. They are an average. This one almost right on the 27 weeks, and the same thing for that low right over there. So because this timing comes out as it does, right on the time frame that we were looking for a low in the markets, and certainly in this group, you can see as I blow this up that the ETF has moved sharply up and into a resistance area. So when we do our work, we look at several things. We look at the cyclical periods, as we have right in here. These are always what we use as a cycle brackets. This, of course, is not the cycle. This is just simply the average length in the money flows, kind of the heartbeat of that market. So you can see in here the low came where it should have, and because this was a positively configured cycle, in other words, the low was way above where this low was, and what we call a very positive translation, because the peak was way on the right side of the cycle, that sets up what is another bullish cycle to follow. And generally you can use our reversal scout to see when that is turned up, and you can see that right there. Now you get this one up week right over here, right where it belongs. Our reversal scout has not turned up yet, so the momentum has not caught up, and it's telling us that, well, let's wait and see. And there even could be a pullback, because we put in the resistances. This is the 38.2, the 50, the 61.8, and the 78.6. So all of our charts that we do our analysis on have this kind of analysis, and you can see going back where you had the positive configuration and the positive translation with the very late peaks, that sets up these positive cycles forming in there. When you had this negative cycle that peaked like right in the middle, or maybe slightly on the left side, and then made a lower low, it said that the next rally would fail. And that, by the way, is how you get these head and shoulders type tops that you see right in here at that form. And then the next cycle, of course, is negative and bottoms spot on time, as you can see. So then positive cycle, what does that tell you? It tells you that the probabilities are very high that the next cycle right in here will challenge that high at 161.17. Now, of course, we've been talking about the fact that the stock market is likely to have a better November and into December, and you can see that is already happening. So the timing on that is correct. And what that says to us is that were there to be a pullback in here, it is very unlikely that it would take out that low. And if anything, give an opportunity, because if you look at even, pretty negative patterns, they don't peak in the first week up. In the most negative pattern that we have in here, that was the third week that it peaked, and that is an extreme rarity. much more likely that this will go up for some months, maybe 6, 8, 10 weeks, and then start to roll over. So we're looking for a favorable period in here, and we're going to have to see how it acts. Now you can see in here these two lines right there. That simply was giving us the range of time that this ideal bottom would come, and this happened to come almost perfectly on, maybe 1 week later, and then moving up. This is a bullish occurrence when we look at this. So now let's quickly look at the stocks that are pretty key in this group, and you will get a good feel for how they line up with the semiconductor ETF. So let's take it the one that everybody looks at first, which is NVIDIA, and we'll do the same thing except faster. And you can see in here, as we look at this chart, which hopefully will blow up, there you go, that we have a cycle that very much looked like it bottomed. Now, the low which occurred right over here was a super strong low, as you can see, and then it rallied and then came down right there into this time frame that we were looking for, low in NVIDIA, and then turning up right over here. So again, with this positive configuration, we really look for these highs to get tested. If it were to come down underneath this low of 393, that would be a bad thing, and it would have us looking at this again and saying, well, something is not right. But right now this looks like this is liable to have a very good rally coming up in here. Now, were this to rally up in here, stall somewhere over here, 470, 480, and then roll over and take out that low, well, that would be a really negative occurrence. That's not something we would expect. In fact, the probability of that happening with an early peak is probably less than 30%, maybe more like 15 to 20%. So right now we're going to look for, if it does pull back in here, that it is a buying opportunity. That's a look at NVIDIA. Let's take a look at Micron MU, and you can see in here, this is similar. But the low that came right over here doesn't really look like that cycle low. It looks more like it was here, but it could be either one. And now it is turning up. And again, because of these cycle shapes, the probability is high that it's going to test up here at the $75 level sometime in coming weeks. So this does look good. Were this to get down below this level, I'm just going to grab this right over here so you can see, below that level right over there at that's 60, where the middle of that cycle is. And I'm just going to look right over here where this level is right there at about 64. Those are the key levels. Under 64, this is not a good pattern at all. And then we would change our mind. But in the meantime, the highest probability is that it will find its way up to 75. Intel has been a dog, an absolute dog, as you can see. It is forming cycles in here that are somewhat positive. However, that the earnings did come out. Whoops, when did the earnings come out? They did come out already there. So it's gotten a rally right here in what looks like the second week, as you can see. But because this low almost took out this low, it says to us that taking out that high is going to be a challenge. It's going to be difficult for Intel and likely to stall in here somewhere and then turn down again, and maybe getting back up to that high right there, which is right around 40. And that really feels like an outlier and a best case for sure. So I don't love this one because of this shape. More likely it's going to come down. Now you can see in here that this is the SMH pattern right over there overlaid on it, and the bottoms were due right here, and it is coming up. So looking at the cycle correlations with the SMH is very important. Let's take a look at AMD right in here, and you can see that the green dashed right there is the SMH. It almost trades exactly with the SMH. Look at the bottom formed right over here and that rally now coming into resistance. A positive cycle and a positive cycle, but this came down very close to that 78.6%. I'm going to guess it's not going to surpass the 78.6% here, but still, it's the first week up. If it pulls back, for traders, this is very likely going to be a buying opportunity and then moving up for some number of weeks. I'm going to make it a high probability that it trades up to 117 level. So therefore, if you can buy it somewhere down over here under 105, 104, it's probably a good purchase for a long side trade. Let's look at Broadcom, which is AVGO, another one of these semiconductor stocks. And this cyclical pattern in here doesn't really lay out perfectly with the rest of the group. You can see in here the green dash is the SMH, and you did have this pullback right in here that aligns with the SMH, but this stock has got a longer cycle pattern, as you can see. It's 34 bars versus the 27 bars that are in the SMH. And this right over here could be a risky period for it. So you can see that it's been range bound in here. And if it got back up into these areas of these high waves on the candlesticks, these rejections, I think it's a sell, and this looks like there's going to be a decline that comes down into January right there. And the last stock we'll look at is in the semiconductor equipment category, which is Applied Materials, AMAT. And you can see in here, well, this looks like a very good pattern. Again, you can see the positive cycle here. The positive cycle here makes the low in support, turns up on the first week right there in the cycle, and very likely if it pulls back, it's going to give a buying opportunity with a pretty good probability that it's going to move up towards that level at about 155 sometime in the next month or two. So this is a very good pattern. Again, if it got underneath that low at around 129, well, that would be bad, and it would have us looking at it again. So that's the importance of understanding the key levels, understanding the cycle shapes, understanding the momentum, which you could see in here is still negative, so it has work to do before it does turn up, and then understanding how to do the projections based on everything that we look at. Of course, this is cycle analysis. It's our version of it, which I think gives some of the clearest looks of market condition. And again, this is a positive pattern in Applied Materials. So that's 6 stocks. The only one that I would say is not lined up strongly for an upside move and is likely to fail if it tries is Broadcom. And the other 5 that we looked at very well lined up with the semiconductor ETF, the SMH, which does look bullish. So overall, what we see is a very strong looking semiconductor group in line with the stock market, and likely to be stocks that do lead on the upside as the market has a better time of it in this next month or more. That's it for the semiconductor stocks.